Harry Hursty actually testified to our New Hampshire House Election Law Committee, and he said, and this is on 2007, September 19th, he was speaking directly about the New Hampshire's Diebold AccuVote OS machines, the only ones that are certified by our state to be used in all of our towns. He said, quote, if you are believing on poll tape, you have to understand he's a foreigner, so there's an accent, and the accent was captured in this. If you are believing in poll tape, that doesn't mean a thing, because I can control the whole thing over whatever logic and accuracy that you perform just before the election, because I have control. I can compare the date, the time, and so in order to be producing fraudulent tape, I will be producing fraudulent tape only on Tuesday evening, and I don't worry about what ballots go through. Harry Hursty, the auditor, one of the auditors of the Windham machines. Now, in addition to that, he had a very severe conflict of interest. He was hired by the state to look at the security of the machines, and one of you guys found how much he was paid. You want to talk about that?
We want to keep that one under the table for now.
All right. But it's funny because yesterday I told these guys when we come up here, there's a lot we can talk about, there's a lot that we know, and we're not going to show our cards. We're going to make the state, the AG's office and the Secretary of State's office respond to the auditing report because it's missing so much. It's written in such a way that it's an embarrassment for us to read it because it represents what didn't happen. But we're not going to share that information today. We'll share that after the state produces their report and before the Ballot Law Commission, who then has to subsequently provide their insights. We'll do it in between those.
Yeah, Nick and I will definitely have Ken and Tom on our podcast. You know, you guys can look us up on Telegram or whatever. CannCon and Nick Moseder. We'll have them on again. We've had them on many times. We do have an email from who's your was it the Lieutenant Governor? But we did a FOIA request and found an email stating that Harry Hursty had in fact gone over the security and consulted with New Hampshire on the security of these machines. Scanlon.
Our Assistant Secretary of State.
Yeah, there you go.
He's not our Lieutenant Governor. We don't have nothing.
No, he's
I'm sorry, I meant Deputy Secretary of State.
Secretary.
Assistant Secretary of State.
He's the Deputy
Yep.
Well,
Secretary of State.
Yeah.
we don't need to disclose the amount of money that he was paid, but just think about the conflict of interest, that this person was in charge of securing the election systems and then is going to come in and audit himself. Okay? Just think about that. He's going to shoot himself in his own foot and destroy his own credibility auditing himself after he said these are secure.
And just to remind everyone, he's the only one qualified to do that part of the audit.
I see we got a lot of hands up. We're taking questions.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Are we, Ken?
Well, we got more to talk about, or you want us to?
I think we're holding the questions till the end.
I wanted to say one thing that just is burning a hole in my head while we're talking about all this, is our election should not be this complicated. It's a bunch of technical jargon. This is how they can pull the wool over our eyes. It's a bunch of technical stuff that I don't even understand, when we could have hand-counted paper ballots and ban all the way. I'm glad to hear a round of applause for that statement.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question. Does anybody in here know what the meaning of dominion is? I looked it up. It says, quote, it's a noun, the power or right of governing and controlling, semicolon, sovereign authority. We are the sovereign authority. All of us are the government, not some machine company. And Nick's right, we have to count our votes because we don't need a machine to do that for us.
Tom and I were talking about this yesterday. Me and Nick and Tom, we got together, did a quick little show, and one of the things that we were discussing is, you know, you look at Georgia. Georgia spent over $100 million on the Dominion voting machines down there. Maricopa County just released how much? $89 million that they're going to spend on new machines after the decertified ones.
Because the machines have been audited,
Yeah.
they're saying they're damaged beyond repair, and they have to replace
Right.
them.
Because you looked at the machines, we can no longer have. I mean, if that's not a terrifying statement. But here's the thing, $100 million in Georgia pays for a lot of people to count votes. You're printing the ballots no matter what. You're printing the ballots no matter what. And when the ballots, when you go to audit printed ballots, there is no, well, memory card reset and you know, source code, we need to have IP, and there's privy to information and intellectual property. There's none of that. There's none of that. You count, and that's it. And if you have questions about it, you ask questions. But, I mean, now we're finding out in Georgia that they gaslighted us for 6 months about audits down there being done in Georgia, and Garland Favorito has literally destroyed the audits, their credibility, using the ballot images themselves. It's indisputable.
I'll give you one example. So apparently Georgia did a hand count, and the auditors that did the hand count, which vindicated the Secretary of State certified results, right? This fake audit that was done. They saw that these batches, for instance, what was it, like 100 for Joe and 20 for Trump. What they said was there's 850 for Joe and 0 for Trump.
Well, you guys all remember the 950 military ballots in Georgia that they said all went for Joe Biden? David Cross and Garland Favorito found that batch. It was 95-6, which is still unreasonable, but that's almost 1,000 votes difference in one batch. There's over 1,500 batches in Fulton County alone, and in one batch, they found 10% of the difference in the margin of victory in Fulton County. One batch. Another batch had 382-76, I believe, Biden to Trump. Not unlikely, except they counted it 3 times. The same exact batch counted 3 times in the audit. In the audit. These audits are smoke and mirrors, folks.
And that's just what we got from the ballot images from the Dominion machines, which are used across the country.
Yeah, and Brian, I think that's an important point to key on, is the fact that you need to look at these audits and how they're conducted. You have Arizona, which I consider a gold standard, and unfortunately I'm disappointed, but New Hampshire is the audit that you don't want to perform. And the reason why is because there was just a lack of transparency. And moreover, when you look at our Attorney General's office, and when you see that we have anomalies, they admit that there are anomalies, but yet they won't take the next step. That's alarming to me, because you can see all the data sets, Merrimack, Amherst, Hooksett, name a town, I can show them, I can look at the amount of overvotes that are on there. It has the same identical anomalies that Windham had, and none of them would do anything about it. Nick, you mentioned that kill chain video, and they showed the Georgia precinct, which was a heavy Democrat precinct, and one machine appeared to be the inverse in flipping votes for going towards Kemp, not Stacey Abrams. What was the comment that our auditor, Philip Stark, said?
1 in a million.
1 in a million.
We have a lot of 1 in a millions in New Hampshire.
A lot.
We might think about playing the lottery.
And they say it's because they most likely just ran all the mail-ins through one machine, right? And I started to wonder, okay, maybe, but they actually looked at the numbers and destroyed the credibility of that argument. Did you want to say about that?
The argument was that, well, those were the write-in votes, the mail-in votes, and so therefore it was heavily Democrat, and that's why it leaned heavily Democrat. But the New Hampshire Voter Integrity Group actually did some research on that. They got the actual numbers specifically for the mail-in votes, and it was about 1,100 plus for Democrat, 900 plus for Republican, and the remaining were undeclared, of about 3,000 votes cast. So it's a little more than a third for Democrat, a little less than a third for Republican. So that argument doesn't hold up, not at all.
And meanwhile, like you said, we're seeing the same thing in other townships across New Hampshire, very similar. And we still have opportunities to audit those. We still have, you know,
That's
as I like to
right,
call them, we have
because those ballots-
untouched machines that we can get in there and actually do this. And if we do it again, we can't let Senate Bill 43 we can't let it get hijacked the way it got hijacked. It passed the Senate with unanimous support. Nothing passes in Congress with unanimous support, very rarely. And then it gets to the House, and they butcher who the auditors are. It goes from Jovan Pulitzer and Colonel Waldron or Dr. Shiva and Ron Rivest, Harry Hursty. You know, it goes from that to we're going to pick who it is.
Well, that was actually a modification. That was an amendment.
Right.
That
That's what I'm
Secretary of
saying.
State Bill Gardner agreed to with me. And we defined ahead of time who the auditors would be in order to ensure election integrity, in order to ensure checks and balances. He wanted me to pick someone because he knew I would represent us. And he wanted to pick someone because he had history with some of the auditors. But he was very well aware of what happened across the country in all these states, where all these state governments were covering up instead of investigating. And so you're right. We had two auditors who would have been experts at the machine level. One of those would have been a team of experts that did the Antrim County, Michigan report. So we knew, I knew, that if they found anything, they were not afraid to expose it. And that's what you want.